G'day guys, JB here with the off-season finally upon us and another 82-game season finally out of the way, with no COVID hiccups, with no bubble, a full 82 games. I think it's time that I release formally my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. Some of you will agree, some of you will disagree, some will be surprised by some rankings, some won't be so surprised by some rankings, but I think you'll enjoy it. So sit back, relax, if you can in fact relax listening to lists and the sounds of my voice, and get ready for my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. At number 35, Scottie Pippen. Played 1987-88 to 2003-04. Six-time NBA champion, three-time All-NBA first-team selection, two-time All-NBA second-team selection, two-time All-NBA third-team selection, eight-time All-Defensive first-team selection, two-time All-Defensive second-team selection, seven-time All-Star selection, one-time All-Star MVP, and one-time Steals champion. Scottie finished top 10 in MVP voting 5 times, top 5 in MVP voting 2 times, and finished top 3 in MVP voting once. In the regular season, he played 1,178 games, averaging 34.9 minutes per game. He averaged 16.1 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game, 2.0 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and 2.8 turnovers per game. He shot 47.3% from the field, 32.6% from deep, and 70.4% from the stripe. In the playoffs, he played 208 games, averaging 39 minutes per game. He averaged 17.5 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.9 blocks per game, and 2.9 turnovers per game. He shot 44.4% from the field, 30.3% from deep, and 72.4% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 35 games, averaging 42 minutes per game. He averaged 19 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, 5.9 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 1.1 blocks per game, 3.3 turnovers per game. He shot 42.5% from the field, 25.6% from deep, and 74.7% from the free throw line. Despite the headlines he has created in recent years following his playing career, it cannot be denied that Scottie Pippen's place in NBA history as its greatest second option and defensive small forward is unmatched. An athletic wing with length to match, Pippen delivered 6 championships alongside Michael Jordan for the Chicago Bulls, and in the process built a reputation on the defensive end as a nightmare matchup. While individual efforts as a team leader didn't garner the same results he achieved as a second option, Pippen showed the potential and prowess he had as he helped turn teams into perennial contenders thanks to his elite defensive game. While many other second options such as John Havlicek and Kobe Bryant would go on to lead teams to championships, no player perfected the role of sidekick better than Scottie Pippen. Drafted out of the NAIA from Central Arkansas by Seattle, Pippen would be traded immediately to Chicago, where he would play reserve minutes in his rookie year. Not quite the star player he would become in just a few years, Pippen would be moulded into a lethal defensive nightmare he was known as, thanks to the tough love of Michael Jordan and the rookie hazing of Charles Oakley. Generally soft-natured, Pippen would dig into his psyche to grow into the Terminator-like operator he would become, along with the lessons provided early on. With his minutes and role growing through 1988-89, his contributions would help see the Bulls through to the Eastern Conference Finals and begin to push the Bulls towards the team of the decade going forward. In just his third season, Pippen would be regarded as one of the league's premier players thanks to his huge defensive efforts. He became just the third player ever to record 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season behind Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon, and would earn the first of his 7 All-Star selections as the Bulls once again pushed to the brink of the NBA Finals before being bundled out by the Detroit Pistons. As much of a pain as the Pistons were to Michael Jordan, they were able to capitalise on Pippen's lack of offensive prowess as well as his softer nature in order to beat the Bulls. However, this would be the last time that Detroit, or any other team for that matter, would hold off a rested and ready tandem of Jordan and Pippen. Missing out on All-Star selection in 1990-91, Pippen would produce his finest year to date. A second straight season of 82 games, a then career high in scoring, a boost in efficiency, continued maintenance of defensive production, An increase on the boards and in facilitation saw the Bulls crack 60 wins and Pippen named to the all-defensive second team as Chicago cruised through the playoffs with an 11-1 record en route to the NBA Finals against Magic Johnson and the Lakers. The two defining and uplifting moments of Scotty's career to truly cement himself as a star of the league came in these playoffs. Firstly, a hard foul from Dennis Rodman in the conference finals saw a golf ball-sized egg on his head, but it didn't see him wavering in focus. Secondly, Scotty was called upon to play solid minutes guarding runner-up MVP Magic Johnson in the NBA Finals, as the Bulls cruised to a 4-1 series victory, the first of 3 straight championships. 1991-92 saw Scotty turn out arguably the most well-rounded season of his career, as All-NBA second-team honours, the first of his 8 straight defensive honours, and another championship and selection to the Dream Team saw him now established as one of the 10 best players in the world. The third title in 1992-93 capped off an incredible run with MJ before he retired following his father's death. While the Bulls took a hit, this was the chance that Scotty needed to prove himself as a superstar in his own right. Earning All-Star MVP honours as well as All-NBA First Team and All-Defensive Team honours, Pippen would lead the Bulls to 55 wins as the third-placed MVP vote-getter before the Bulls were eliminated by the Knicks in the conference semi-finals. Following season, with a new-look Bulls roster, Pippen found himself struggling to adapt to his new teammates despite similar statistical output from the year prior. While first-team honours on both sides of the ball were earned again, it was the return of Jordan in March of 1995 that helped steady the Bulls before the playoffs. An elimination at the hands of the Orlando Magic of Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway in the second round would be the last time the MJ and Pippen Bulls wouldn't see championship success, as Chicago poured in 3 straight seasons of 72, 69 and 62 wins en route to yet another three-peat. The only 2 players involved in both were Jordan and Pippen. And while it can be argued that while MJ was the leader, the level of success wouldn't have been the same without Scottie Pippen. Pippen's body began to break down following the 1996-97 season. Missing 38 games of the final championship year of 1997-98, Scotty, like most of his teammates, found new homes heading into the lockout of 1999. Teaming with Hakeem Olajuwon and Charles Barkley in Houston, the Rockets would prove to be a little over the hump and not garner the success they were looking for. In response, Pippen then headed to Portland, where a berth in the 2000 NBA Finals was blown to the Lakers, as they accounted for a 15-point deficit in Game 7 of the conference finals. After 4 seasons in Portland, Pippen would complete his NBA career with, ironically, 23 games for Chicago in 2003-04, retiring at the age of 38. Scottie Pippen is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, selected to the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 33 is retired by Chicago. At number 34, Rick Barry, played 1965-66 to 1979-80. A one-time NBA champion, a one-time Finals MVP, 5-time All-NBA First-Team selection, a one-time All-NBA Second-Team selection, 8-time All-Star selection, one-time All-Star MVP, a one-time scoring champion, a one-time steals champion, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie First-Team selection. Rick Barry was top 10 in MVP voting 4 times and top 5 in MVP voting 3 times. In the regular season, he played 974 games, averaging 36.3 minutes per game. He averaged 23.2 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists per game, 2 steals per game, 0.5 blocks per game, 2.5 turnovers per game. He shot 44.9% from the field, 33% from deep, and 90% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 74 games and averaged 36.8 minutes per game. He averaged 24.8 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game, 2.2 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and 1.5 turnovers per game. He shot 42.6% from the field, 25% from deep, and 87.5% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 10 games, averaging 43.2 minutes per game. He averaged 36.3 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, 3.5 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. He shot 41.3% from the field and 83.7% from the free throw line. He did not compete in the NBA Finals with a 3-point line. In the annals of NBA history, the legendary franchises have a plethora of superstars who stood up and delivered legendary moments and careers. When you think of the Lakers, the Celtics, the Bulls, the Spurs, and the Warriors, you think of the contributions of legendary figures of each team that transcended the league, and the heroes of each team that their fan base truly love and appreciate. For the modern Warriors, names such as Curry, Thompson, Green, and Iguodala are all synonymous with the franchise. In the time gone by, the likes of Davis, Jackson, Jamison for the We Believe Warriors, or the Run TMC Warriors of Hardaway, Richmond, and Mullen, even dating back to the beginning of the San Francisco Warriors, giants of the game like Chamberlain and Thurman spring to mind. But for 40 years, only one man was able to stake their claim as the leader of a Warriors championship team. A man who was the first player ever to be the lone all-star on a championship team. That man, Rick Barry. Barry is amongst the most forgotten about superstar players in league history. An all-time great small forward, an all-time great scorer, and an all-time great free throw shooter, an all-time great crossover player between the NBA and ABA, there wasn't much Rick Barry didn't achieve during his career. Many know him as a typical old head in the modern game. But if you had achieved the level of success Rick Barry did in his career and garnered the level of recognition and respect he does, you would probably come across as a little bitter and upset. Barry was drafted second in the 1965 NBA draft behind Fred Hetzel. Yes, I said who out loud as well. And territorial picks such as Bill Bradley and Gail Goodrich, and would instantly set the league on fire. Winning Rookie of the Year honours, averaging 25.6 points per game, 10.6 rebounds per game, and 2.2 assists per game, Barry was just the fifth and last rookie to average at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. San Francisco realised they had something special on their hands, but were not expecting what was to come the next season. As a sophomore, Barry would set a scoring record that would stand until 1986-87. By averaging 35.6 points per game in 1966-67, Barry would hold the record for the highest per-game scoring average in a 16-foot lane until Michael Jordan averaged 37.1 points some 20 years later. Barry would also sit in second position for another 32 years until James Harden averaged 36.1 points in 2018-19. This was in a time without a three-point line and a more physical and rougher period of league history when it pertains to defensive presence. Teamed up with Nate Thurman, who averaged over 18.7 points and 21.3 rebounds, Barry in just his second year would lead the Warriors through a gauntlet in the playoffs. Sweeping the Lakers 3-0 with Elgin Baylor, Jerry West would be out in the first minute of Game 1 with injury, and taking down the St. Louis Hawks of Lou Hudson and Lenny Wilkins in 6 games, the luck of the Warriors would run out as they ran headfirst into the Philadelphia 76ers of Wilt Chamberlain and Hal Greer. At the time, Philadelphia held the single-season record for wins and completed one of the greatest seasons in league history by defeating San Francisco for the championship. Barry would not go down without a fight. Despite a 6-game defeat, Barry would average 40.8 points per game in the NBA Finals to set the NBA Finals record for points per game in a series. This record would stand for 26 years until, like a vast majority of scoring records throughout history, it was broken by Michael Jordan. In 2 seasons, Barry had set a precedent that the league was going to be his whether it was handed to him or he had to steal it. That was until he left for the ABA. Missing what would have been his 3rd season of pro basketball due to an injunction, Barry would then play 4 years in the ABA for Oakland, Washington and New York before returning to the NBA in 1972-3 again to the Warriors. While his scoring had dropped from his previous NBA stint, the efficiency at the line was maintained. In his second run as an NBA player, Barry shot over 90% from the free throw line in 7 of his 8 seasons, missing out on the singles season by 0.1%. Barry didn't do this in the traditional sense though, shooting an underhanded free throw with both hands that has never been replicated to anywhere near the success he had with it. Eventually finding his feet again in the league, Barry would average 30.6 points and 2.9 steals per game in the 1974-75 season, setting again 2 major feats. Firstly, he became the first player in league history to lead the league in steals at 2.9 per game and average 30 points per game. He averaged 30.6 per game. A feat that has only been matched by Michael Jordan 3 times, Allen Iverson twice, most recently Steph Curry in 2015-16. The second is that he became the first lone All-Star on a championship team. Defeating Seattle, Chicago and then Washington, the Warriors would win their first title in franchise history off the back of Barry's play. With the Finals MVP in his trophy cabinet, Barry's resume was all but complete. He would remain an All-Star player for the rest of his time in Golden State before closing his career out with the Houston Rockets. For 40 years, he would remain the only leader of a Golden State championship team, until the 2014-15 Warriors added another championship trophy to the cabinet. Rick Barry is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 24 is retired by Golden State. At number 33, Isiah Thomas. Played 1981-82 to 1993-94. Isiah was a two-time champion, one-time Finals MVP, three-time All-NBA first-team selection, two-time All-NBA second-team selection, 12-time All-Star selection, two-time All-Star MVP, one-time assist leader, and All-Rookie first-team selection. Isiah finished top 10 in MVP voting 4 times and top 5 in MVP voting once. In the regular season, he played 979 games, averaging 36.3 minutes per game. He averaged 19.2 points per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, 9.3 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, and 3.8 turnovers per game. He shot 45.2% from the field, 29% from deep, and 75.9% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 111 games, averaging 38 minutes per game. He averaged 20.4 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 8.9 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, and 3.3 turnovers per game. He shot 41.4% from the field, 34.6% from deep, and 76.9% from the stripe. In the NBA Finals, he played 16 games, averaging 37.2 minutes per game. He averaged 22.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 7.9 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, and 0.3 blocks per game on 3.8 turnovers per game. He shot 48% from the field, 46.2% from deep, and 78.6% from the free throw line. It can be argued that there was never a deeper talent pool in the NBA than the 1980s. With the league having gone through expansion and the ABA merger, there were more options for talent without dilution, whilst bringing stars into the league. At the top, you had genuine all-time contenders at the position: Magic, Jordan, Bird, and Kareem. All have a case as the greatest at their position, with the second and third tier stars across the league proving they belong alongside them. Isiah Thomas is the best example of this. In his prime, Isiah could be argued as the best guard in basketball. At his peak, he would be named to the All-NBA first team. The biggest issue Isiah had as an individual for his career, however, was that he was a small point guard playing the shadow cast by Magic Johnson. However, that shouldn't overshadow the skill set, leadership, heart and determination Thomas showed in battling the league for a decade en route to championship success. Arguably the most controlled handle in basketball history, Thomas showed an ability to keep the ball tight to himself and make his way through opponents with ease, offering up a shot or a pass to an open teammate. Defensively, he was quick enough laterally to stay in front of any opponent and savvy enough to feed into a ferocious help defense. Drafted out of Bob Knight's Indiana University behind future teammate Mark Aguirre, Thomas would go from Chicago basketball's next star at the start of his career through to arguably its most despised opponent. Growing up in Chicago's West Side, Thomas was predicted to be a feel-good story of the local lad who turned around the battered franchise into a champion. That wouldn't be the case as Thomas headed to Detroit, a lowly franchise that was yet to secure a title and had only had a modicum of vague success in the postseason. Yet somehow, Thomas remained loyal to the franchise and repaid the faith placed in him by Jack McCloskey to become the greatest player in franchise history. Isiah instantly ignited the NBA with a level of excitement in a small player that hadn't been seen since Bob Cousy. An all-star in every season beside his last, Thomas proved to be a tough matchup for defences who generally played larger guards, as his speed and quickness found them falling over themselves. While not winning Rookie of the Year, the Pistons improved their record by 18 games and showed that with Thomas in charge, things were on the up. Whilst his sophomore season saw an increase in scoring, Pistons were stuck in the mud and missed the playoffs again. The next 3 seasons saw a change in the favours of the franchise, and the playoff Thomas would rank as one of the best point guard peaks in history. Jumping to 49 wins in 1983-84, Thomas would be named All-Star Game MVP, selected to the first of his 3 straight All-NBA first teams, and strung together the first of his 4 straight seasons, averaging 20 points and 10 assists per game. By comparison, only Oscar Robertson from 1963-4 to 1966-67 and Russell Westbrook from 2015-16 to 2018-19 have strung together such streaks through history. With the Pistons making their first playoff appearance under Thomas, there was a clear evidence that Detroit was going to be around for the next decade as a leading Eastern Conference contender. There would only be 2 major players the Pistons and Thomas would be battling to make the big dance during this time: Larry Bird's Boston Celtics and Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. In their early campaigns, the Detroit and Boston matchup would be hard and physical, often resulting in fights and ejections. Boston making the finals 4 straight years from 1984 to 1987, the Pistons would fall victim in the playoffs in both 1985 and 1987. 1987 most famously coming with the Larry Bird steal following a rushed Isaiah Thomas inbound play. Come 1988, both the Celtics and the Bulls would match up with the Pistons, both falling to the side as the physical play of the now dubbed Bad Boys saw them through to the NBA Finals against the Showtime Lakers of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. For the Pistons, a 3-2 lead heading into Game 6 in the Forum of the 1988 Finals looked set to be their crowning achievement. However, a sprained ankle to Thomas mid-game saw him hobbled badly. However, the inspired Thomas would score a miraculous 25 points in the third term and all but get the Pistons over the line before what can best be described as a soft foul on Bill Laimbeer late in the fourth quarter saw Kareem hit clutch free throws to extend the series to 7 games, where the Lakers repeated as champions. This would not be the case the following 2 seasons. The Pistons made the NBA Finals in 1989 and 1990, defeating the Lakers in revenge for the year prior, before dismantling the Portland Trailblazers of Clyde Drexler in 1990. Both would be crowning achievements for Thomas, who would garner the Finals MVP award against the Blazers to cap off one of the best decades of play by a point guard in history. While an unceremonious exit from the 1991 Conference Finals will always be burned in the memory of basketball fans as the start of Thomas's downfall, it must be known that Thomas was the captain of a team that made 5 straight Conference Finals appearances and would face the 3 defining names of the 80s along the way. Following his snub on the 1992 Dream Team, Thomas would play out his career until an Achilles tendon tear midway through the 1993-94 season saw his career end. Isaiah Thomas is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 11 is retired by Detroit. At number 32, Patrick Ewing. Played 1985-86 to 2001-02. One-time All-NBA first-team selection, 6-time All-NBA second-team selection, 3-time All-Defensive second-team selection, 11-time All-Star selection, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie first-team selection. Patrick finished top 10 in MVP voting 7 times and top 5 in MVP voting 6 times. In the regular season, he played 1,183 games, averaging 34.3 minutes per game. He averaged 21 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists per game, 1 steal per game, 2.4 blocks per game, and 3 turnovers per game. He shot 50.4% from the field, 15.2% from deep, and 74% from the line. In the playoffs, he played 139 games, averaging 37.5 minutes per game. He averaged 20.2 points per game, 10.3 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game, 0.9 steals per game, and 2.2 blocks per game on 2.5 turnovers per game. He shot 46.9% from the field, 34.8% from deep, and 71.8% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 7 games, averaging 44 minutes per game. He averaged 18.9 points per game, 12.4 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, and 4.3 blocks per game on 3.1 turnovers. He shot 36.2% from the field, 20% from deep, and 71.4% from the free throw line. A lot of people fell short of championship success thanks to Michael Jordan in the 1990s. But no player felt this pain more directly than the last great hope of the New York Knicks, Patrick Ewing. A dominant big man from the time he stepped onto the floor of the NCAA to the time injuries truly started to take a toll at the close of the 20th century, Ewing proved to be the heart and soul of New York and is still remembered as one of the city's most beloved athletes despite never obtaining the ultimate success. Drafted first overall in the 1985 NBA draft, Ewing was the star the Knicks had been trying to land following their championship success in 1973. Finishing college with one of the best big man careers ever, the pressure to transfer that success to the NBA as the number one pick in the draft and as the face of the New York Knicks was remarkable. Earning Rookie of the Year honours, Ewing would be hampered with injuries through his first 2 seasons, with some wondering if it was going to be possible for him to deliver on a world of promise and avoid the issues many other high draft prospects that decade suffered. With health problems behind him come his 3rd season, Ewing began a long span of consecutive playoff berths with the Knicks, which saw them to at least the 2nd round 11 times in 13 seasons. New York was once again back to being a contender, and Ewing was the face of a franchise that looked set to deliver. Ewing was the catalyst and the star of the show. All-NBA and All-Defensive second-team honours established him among the 10 best players in the league, and while the spoils of victory didn't go his way, there was enough evidence to show Ewing was going to be a problem for the next decade. Having suffered at the hands of Larry Bird in 1988, Ewing would collect the Knicks' first playoff series win since 1984 in a sweep against Charles Barkley and the Philadelphia 76ers in 1989. However, the glory of the first round would soon be short-lived, as the Knicks would suffer the first of their 5 playoff exits at the hands of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. No player suffered more as a direct result of the Bulls and MJ than Ewing and the Knicks, who likely have 2 championships to their name had they won in latter seasons. An evident blueprint for what would be the clear team identity was being brewed with success in Detroit with the play of the Bad Boy Pistons, and would be totally reinvigorated by the Knicks in just a few short seasons to suit their team and leader. 1989-90 proved to be the best season of Ewing's career. Patrick would have better MVP finishes and clearly go further in the playoffs, but by finishing 5th in MVP voting and earning All-NBA first-team honours, Patrick would start the decade as the league's best centre. Playing and starting in all 82 games, averaging over 38 minutes, shooting 55.1% from the field, 77.5% from the free throw line, and averaging around at 29 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 4 blocks a game, Ewing was a nightmare. This would culminate in a 5-game first-round win against the Boston Celtics, with Ewing posting career playoff highs in points and assists. With a second-round defeat against the eventual champion Pistons, Ewing's huge season would be all but forgotten and tell yet another tale of misfortune. In arguably the deepest talent pool of centres ever, the 1990s would feature Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Dikembe Mutombo and Alonzo Mourning, all of whom garnered some sort of award for their play. Patrick ranks 4th among this group of individuals, being mixed in this talent pool and eliminated regularly by MJ and the Bulls, has seen him overshadowed. Of players to score 20,000 points, grab 10,000 rebounds and block 2,000 shots, Ewing sits alongside the above-mentioned Olajuwon, Robinson, O'Neal, and alongside Abdul-Jabbar, Parrish, Duncan and Garnett. After 3 straight playoff eliminations at the hands of Jordan and the Bulls, Ewing and the Knicks would finally crack into the NBA Finals in 1994. The only issue? Hakeem Olajuwon. After a massive playoff run through the East, Ewing was outplayed by Olajuwon as the Rockets secured the first of their back-to-back titles. While defensively Ewing was solid, his offensive game let him down, averaging just 18.9 points on 36.3% shooting. While Ewing played poorly, it must be known that the New York Knicks would not have been close to competing for a championship at almost any stage of the 1990s without Patrick at centre. Ewing and the Knicks would remain a genuine contender for the remainder of his career despite niggling injuries. While his numbers were certainly by no means the same in his latter years, the evidence was still there. New York would not have contended if Patrick was not in the team. Come the 1999 lockout season, a rebuilt Knicks team looked to be the evidence that the Ewing era was over. But again, his impact was evident. The Knicks as an 8th seed would upset the 1st seed Miami Heat, survive the Atlanta Hawks, and eliminate the Indiana Pacers once again to make the NBA Finals. Patrick's last graft chance at a championship was dashed with injury in the conference finals after just 2 games, however. The Knicks would make an unlikely conference finals berth in 2000 as injury saw Patrick's time as a Knick come to an end. 2 seasons in Seattle and Orlando saw his career come to an end, but nothing can erase his efforts turning the Knicks from chumps to championship contenders. Patrick Ewing is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 33 is retired by New York. At number 31, Dave Cowens. Played 1970-71 to 1982-83. Cowens was a two-time NBA champion, a one-time MVP, three-time All-NBA second-team selection, one-time All-Defensive first-team selection, two-time All-Defensive second-team selection, eight-time All-Star selection, one-time All-Star MVP, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie first-team selection. Cowens finished top 10 in MVP voting 5 times, top 5 in MVP voting 4 times, top 3 in MVP voting 3 times, a one-time runner-up MVP, and of course a one-time MVP winner. In the regular season, he played 766 games, averaging 38.6 minutes per game. He averaged 17.6 points per game, 13.6 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game, 0.9 blocks per game, and 2.2 turnovers per game. He shot 46% from the field, 7.1% from three-point land with limited games with the three-point line, and 78.3% from the stripe. In the playoffs, he played 89 games, averaging 42.3 minutes per game. He averaged 18.9 points per game, 14.4 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game, 0.9 blocks per game, and 0.9 turnovers per game in limited data. He shot 45.1% from the field. He didn't make a three-point attempt in the playoffs, albeit with limited three-point access in the playoffs, and shot 74.4% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 13 games, averaging 43 minutes per game. He averaged 21.7 points per game, 12.8 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game, and 0.3 blocks per game. Turnover data not available in the NBA Finals. He shot 47% from the field. He did not attempt a three-point shot in the NBA Finals as there was no access to the three-point line in his NBA Finals career, and shot 73.3% from the free throw line. While playing for the Boston Celtics can be a boost to a player's career, it can also be as much of a hindrance. With so many great players having stepped onto the hallowed parquet floor of the Boston Garden and TD Garden, narrowing down the list of true legends of the team is hard. Many names stand out throughout history: Sharman, Cousy, Russell, Heinsohn, Havlicek, White, Maxwell, Bird, McHale, Parrish, Johnson, Lewis, Pierce, Walker, Allen, Garnett, Tatum, Brown, Smart. From start to finish, a list of players who can fit in at any time of the franchise's history and make an impact. However, there is just one name that isn't on that list: a Rookie of the Year, an All-Star MVP, and a League MVP. His name, Dave Cowens. Cowens is just one of 4 Celtics to win the League MVP, multiple championships, and an All-Star MVP award, along with Bob Cousy, Bill Russell, and Larry Bird. Outside of the Celtics, the following players have won a League MVP, multiple championships, and an All-Star MVP: Wilt Chamberlain, Willis Reed, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. Yes, Cowens sits at the same table as these men. Almost all the names mentioned can be contested as the best player ever for their respective franchises. However, Cowens may just be the only one that falls short of this mantle by a stretch. At best, he's the Celtics' 5th best player of all time, and unfortunately misses out on the starting spot as the best big man the team has ever seen, thanks to Bill Russell. But don't let that hide the fact that Cowens was a competitor that was willing to scrap and fight his way through a legendary career. Drafted as the 4th overall pick of the 1970 draft, a year removed from that famed Celtic dynasty, Cowens stepped into a pair of shoes that have never been filled. But that didn't stop him from creating a legacy that put his number in the rafters and saw him produce a Hall of Fame career. His Rookie of the Year campaign saw him post 17 points and 15 rebounds a game, something that only Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Walt Bellamy, Jerry Lucas, Elvin Hayes, and Elmore Smith have achieved. This would be the first of 8 straight seasons averaging at least 16.4 points a game and 13.9 rebounds per game. A streak that, if rounded to 16 points and 13 rebounds a game, is only exceeded by Bob Pettit and Wilt Chamberlain. With the Celtics contending again by his second season with an Eastern Conference Finals defeat at the hands of the New York Knicks, Cowens was proving to be a more mobile and agile offensive option than Bill Russell, while still playing a defensive role from the block as he garnered the first of his 8 All-Star selections. Cowans could best be described as a genuine all-around offensive big man. The ability to play down low, a threat to face up and shoot, could take his opponent off the dribble, and confident enough to stretch the floor and allow the likes of John Havlicek, JoJo White, Paul Silas, Don Chaney, Don Nelson, and Charlie Scott to thrive. A credible and tenacious rebounder and a hard-nosed defender, Cowans could alternate his role as either the star or alternative scoring role for the team. By his third season in 1972-73, Cowans had become as respected as any great player in the league and was voted as the MVP. There was but one caveat to it. Cowans would become the last MVP in league history to win the award whilst being named to the All-NBA second team. The only other MVP in history to only make the All-NBA second team as MVP? Bill Russell. This was wrapped up with a franchise record 68 wins and what seemed to be a certain NBA championship, until a 7-game defeat at the hands of the eventual champion New York Knicks. Despite outplaying everyone else in the series, an injured John Havlicek proved to be too much to overcome for Cowans and the Celtics. Revenge would be sweet for Cowans and the Celtics in 1974. Taking on the last of the Milwaukee Bucks of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Oscar Robertson and Bob Dandridge, Cowans would contest a legendary finals battle with the best player of the 1970s, and despite a favourable matchup for Kareem, would prove to be the best player in the deciding Game 7 to secure the Celtics' first championship since that dynasty of Bill Russell. Another 60-win season in 1974-75 would prove not enough, as the conference finals lost to the Washington Bullets off the back of poor shooting in the series against Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes, but a return to glory against the Phoenix Suns of Paul Westphal and Alvin Adams in the 1976 finals proved to be the final crowning achievement for the Celtics and Cowans. The semi-finals exit in 1977 all but ended the second great run of the Celtics, who had at one stage competed in 5 straight conference finals. Celtics would eventually drop from playoff contention, and the likes of Havlicek and White would move on. With future finals MVP Cedric Maxwell joining the team and future legend Larry Bird drafted and awaiting his professional arrival, Cowans took the role of playing coach with the team just 14 games in the 1978-79 season, as they finished with just 29 wins on the season. Cowans was the last ever player coach in the league before handing the reins over to full-time coach Bill Fitch to start the Larry Bird era. This would be Cowans' last season as a Celtic before a brief return with the Milwaukee Bucks in 1982-83 rounded out his career. Dave Cowans is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 18 is retired by Boston.